All right, let's go over the core balance and mobility basic workout number 3. Starting with the standing exercises, and we're going to do first a narrow stance hip hinge. Feet together on this one, pretty close together at least. Heels down, ball of the foot down, and then we're going to hinge at the hip. Feeling the stretch in the back of the leg, sending the hips back, letting the shoulder come forward. We'll go down to the furthest point that we can while keeping our spine in a neutral position. We'll do 8 repetitions. This is practicing distinguishing between hip mobility and spine mobility. We actually want spine stability here so that the spine is not rocking. It's just the hips that are opening and closing. Next, we have some standing wide stance overhead rotations. So I'm going to take as it implies, a wide stance, and then I'm going to rotate my arms so that they come overhead, meeting together at the top and then sweeping back through. I feel a light stretch on my inner thigh as I do this shoulder rotation. And you can see from the side that I want to be completely upright, and I want my arms to come directly overhead, or as close to directly overhead as I can. 8 of those. Next, I'm going to do some neck resistance. Okay, so this is going to be strengthening your neck muscles, which oftentimes will get neglected in our training program. So what I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to put my hand on one side of my head, and then I'm going to push with my hands and flex my neck and hold for 3, 2, 1, and then release. And then I'll come from behind, and then I'll go, this is actually meant to be 15 seconds each position, and I'm just working against my hands, flexing my neck muscles up against my hands. And then I'm doing it from the other side, and then I'll do it from straight on. Flexing that neck, giving it a little bit of a workout here. Great, next, I'll just do some standing hugs. So I'm just going to stand here and give myself a big hug. Wrapping my arms around as far behind my shoulders as I can. I can do 15 seconds with my left arm on top, and then I'll switch so that I'm getting my other arm equally. Feeling the stretch behind your shoulders. Next, split stance calf stretch. So I'll come into a split stance for the purpose of stretching my back leg, the bottom of my back leg. And then from here, I'll stick my toes down and then just try to let my heel come down onto the mat. Don't be overzealous on this stretch. It should be a light stretch, not too intense. It's a vulnerable area, especially from this position where you're putting your body weight into it. I'm going to do 15 seconds each side, making sure that both of your toes are pointed straight ahead. The common thing would be to have your foot back, like rotated like that, but to get your whole calf muscle, you want to be lined up straight ahead. Arm swings are next. There's 3 different kinds of arm swings that we're going to do. The first one is I'm going to bring my arms across my body right at chest height here. And I'm doing 8 repetitions of each of these, squeezing the shoulder blades together on the back end of the movement. The second one are going to be exaggerated running mechanics. So one arm's going to reach way back, and the other one's going to reach way overhead, and then I'll switch, 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 switch. Yeah, working to get as much range of motion as you can, but it's a continuous motion. These active stretches feel really good in opening us up. Good, and then the last one will be just some arm circles. So I'm just going to draw a big circle with my arm and try to let it go pretty fluidly through the motion. 8 arm circles. Great, we'll do some standing trunk rotations next. I'll take a wide stance, and I'm going to start by having my weight on one foot, and notice that I'm rotating my hip, shoulders, and feet. They're all going to rotate together, head too. My body is going to stay bent a little bit, so I'm going to bend my knees and hips a little bit, let my shoulders rotate forward, and then I'm going to transfer my weight to the other side while keeping my shoulders and hips level, but also rotating the shoulders, hips, feet, and head together. And I'm turning the trunk. I'm turning my body. Yeah, transferring the weight from right to left. 8 each direction, letting the arms swing too. Okay, we'll transition to some standing wall side exercises. So for these ones, it will possibly help to be close to the wall. Standing plantar flexion stretch. So I'm going to stand into the wall, lean into the wall, and then I'm going to stick the back of my foot, or the top of my foot, the top of my toes onto the mat, and it will stretch me into a plantar flexion or pointed toe position. I want to do 15 seconds each foot. Keeping the mobility in our ankles in all ranges of motion, it's really important. Next, I'm going to do some wide and narrow squats. I'm going to do 5 repetitions each. So first I'll take an extra wide stance, wider than hip width, clearly wider than hip width. I want to keep my heel down on the squat. I'm going to show you from this angle first, but you can use assistance from the wall or also from a bench or something that's at about chest height. So I can put my hands onto it to decrease the resistance of the exercise, especially coming out of the bottom of the exercise. But here, I'll do it non-assisted. If you can do it non-assisted, that's great too. So set my feet. I want to keep my heels down, the ball of my foot down, and my toes down. And then I'm going to think about this in 3 parts. First is standing tall. Second is doing one of those hip hinge motions so that the shoulders come forward and the hips go back, the spine remains neutral. And then thirdly, I'm going to bend the knees to drop the hips down. This is going to stretch your ankle, and this wide stance is really going to stretch your inner thigh, and I'll stand up from there. I just want to make sure that my knees stay wide. I don't want them to cave in, so keep them wide. Only go as low as you can while keeping the heels down and while keeping the knees tracking appropriately. 5 of those, and now I'll come to an extra narrow stance so that my heels are actually down underneath my hips. So this is going to stretch you in a different way, but it's going to be the same idea of standing tall, hinging at the hips, and then bending the knees to go as low as you can. This one's a lot more intense for your ankle mobility. You're really going to have to work your ankles in order to do a narrow stance squat. Great. One leg balance in front. So hold on to the wall for balance as needed, and then I'm going to kick one leg out in front, point the toe, and then I'll balance right here. Try not to rely on the wall if you don't have to, but at first you can hold on to the wall. Let your shoulders lean forward a little bit, keep your head back, and we're doing 15 seconds each side. When you're balancing on one leg, you have to really be flexed through your down hip and knee, working the whole foot, digging those toes into the ground. Standing W pulls are next. So I'm just going to stand, actually for this one, I'm going to come against the wall, okay? So put your heels, hips, shoulder blades, and head flat against the wall. This is the first step. Can you do this? Now from here, I'm going to squeeze the shoulder blades together and try to get my elbows and my wrists back against the wall. You may or you may not be able to get your elbows and wrists back this far. It's going to be a lot of work for your shoulders, and if you're tight in the front here, it's going to be extra hard. But our goal is to be able to come back all the way against the wall. And so then I'll do repetitions of it. I'll squeeze and release, squeeze and release. I'll do 8 repetitions. Being engaged with your legs and your abdominals will help you get back further. Okay. Lastly, for this period will be some standing lateral leg lifts. So I can, again, hold onto the wall for as needed for balance, be strong through the down leg, and then I'm just going to lift my leg out to the side. Now notice that I'm not rotating my hip so that my toe is actually going to stay straight ahead. I'm not going to be able to get as high this way, but I'm really going to be isolating the outside of my hip. And that's the area that I'm really trying to focus on. The rest of the body you're trying to keep balanced, keep the shoulders balanced over the down foot. If you need to tap down the foot in between repetitions, that's fine, but if you can balance, that's great too. Okay, next we're going to do some bent over skiir rows. So I'm going to do a hip hinging motion. I can have my feet together on this one, and then I'll hinge at the hip, I'll hold this position, and then a skiir row is, you can imagine you're cross-country skiing, where you're bringing the poles through here. So I'm going to start with the hands in front. The elbows are going to remain soft, but mostly extended through this exercise. And then it's really about the shoulder blades squeezing and releasing. 8 repetitions here. Feel it in my the lower part of my upper back, my mid-back. And then I'm going to do a jump simulation. Okay, so we're going to imagine that we're trying to jump up to the ceiling, but we're not actually going to leave the ground. I think this is a really good flowing exercise. So the feet are going to be placed about hip width down. Okay, I'm going to start tall, and I'm basically going to go for a hip hinge motion. So I'll flow down, but I'm also going to add the arms to here. So I want the arms to basically do another one of those skier rows. And then I'm going to do it, so I'm going to first bend at the waist, and then I'll bend the knees to get down a little bit lower, and then I'll extend through, and I'm going to try to come up. I'm going to extend the ankles, the knees, the hips, and I'm going to reach the arms overhead. And then I'll flow back down to the bottom, reaching back and repeating. Really great to go through this range of motion and get this full extension, squeezing everything you've got. And also to coordinate the upper and lower body. Great. All right, we're going to work our way back down to the mat now. And we're going to begin with some side planks. So we want to pick an appropriate level. And we know it's appropriate if we can keep our shoulder extended through. So we're not shrugging, we have to stay extended through. So at level 1, I'll keep my hip down. At level 2, I'll keep my lower leg down, but I'll lift my hip. And then at level 3, I can split my feet and lift my knees and hips. Level 4, a little harder even than that, is to stack the feet. Now, once you're there, extend those hips up and forward. Brace your abdominals. Squeezing the legs will really help to take pressure off of your shoulder. So getting both sides. I can be here. I can split. I can do level 2 or level 1, whatever is appropriate for you. Secondly, I'm going to do some laying behind the back stretches. So I'm laying on my belly, and then I'm going to go behind the back with my arms. I'm going to cusp my hands on the small of my back, and then I'm going to squeeze my shoulder blades together and lift my hands off of the mat, off of my back, and I'll hold this position. I'm really not a great model for this one. I'm really tight here. Some people might be able to get their hands further off of their back, and that's the goal. So 15 seconds with that one. Next, I've got bicycle crunches. I'm going to lie on my back. I'm going to crunch up my shoulders a little bit initially, hands by the ears. I'll start with one foot extended with the other one bent, and I'll turn very slightly to get my opposite elbow to my opposite knee. So in this case, right elbow coming closer to left knee. I don't need to go like this. Here, I'm crunching too far and straining my neck. I don't need to do that. I'm just going to take a little turn of the shoulder, and then I'll switch, switch, switch. Abdominals will be working. Hip flexors will be working. I like this tempo right about here, where I'm pausing at both ends of the motion briefly. 8 each side. Kneeling hip circles. Kneeling position, palms down, spreading out the fingers, stretching the wrists, strong through the elbow, and then I'm going to do my hip circle. So I'm going to kick my leg straight back, and then from there I'm going to open the hip so that the knee circles around and returns back to the starting position, and then I'm going to flow through this motion. You can imagine that you have a little bit of a hurdle that starts right here, and it's about 4 inches off the ground, and I'm trying to get up and over that hurdle. We'll get both sides, kicking straight back, and then opening to the side. Really flex that leg fully back. You have to complete that extension of your knee and your hip to really get the effect on your hips. And it'll really burn if you're doing it all the way. Next, I have a push-up position hold. Palms down. And then I'm going to extend my knees out and just hold this position. I'm going to squeeze the legs as tight as I can. Squeeze my abdominals. And that will take some of the pressure off of my shoulder. And I'll be more efficient in this position. 15 seconds. And then I have some side lying hip circles. So I'll lie on my side, let my head relax back, and then I'm going to just lift one leg off of the other, point the toe, and then I'm just going to draw a little bit of a circle. Try to be very precise here. Make all of your circles exactly the same. Make them all the same. Other side, 8 repetitions each side to start. And don't have your legs sticking out too far forward. I want them right in line. Great. Okay, now we're going on to seated, hands down, behind bridge. So I'm seated, hands down behind, and then I'm going to, if I want to just stay here, I'm going to squeeze the shoulder blades together, opening up the chest. Let your eyes look up at the ceiling, but then also you have the option here to lift the hips up, pressing strong through the arms, keeping the chest open, letting the head relax back, holding that position for 15 seconds. Rounding your lower spine here. Instead, I want you to think about flexing your hips the whole time here, flexing your hips and keeping them tight so that you're focusing the stretch on your hip flexor and your abdominal instead of cranking your back. Clams are next. Lying on your side, bending the knees up, keeping the heels together, and then I'm going to open and close at the hip here while keeping the feet together. Feeling a little bit of a burn right in my hip girdle here. 8 each side. Yeah, just bringing that knee as high as you can, or through as large a range of motion as you can, while keeping the feet together. Laying ham stretch with ankle pulses. I'm laying on my back. I can have one leg extended out straight on the ground, the other one is extended overhead. I'm going to actively kick it back as far as I can, and then I can assist the stretch a little bit by pulling behind my knee with my hand, and then I'm going to rock the knee. I'm going to flex and extend the ankle rather. Flex and extend the ankle. The knee will remain straight. 15 seconds each side. Feeling the stretch all along your hamstring, the back of your leg. You'll certainly feel it in your calf when you're going through your ankle range of motion. The bretzel is next. S stretch or bretzel they call it. It's where you can see my legs here. I'm going to have one leg back behind me and the other one is tucked in front of me. Now this can be a stretch that if you're really tight in your inner thigh, that's where you're going to feel it. I do not want you to feel like you're straining your ligaments of your knee here. So start by leaning away from it, but we're working to come to an upright position. The more upright I am, the more I'm going to feel that stretch on my trailing leg. Make sure to do both sides. Notice if there's a difference between one side or the other. This one will really show if you have an imbalance. All right, some more stretches. Now we'll go to the pigeon stretch. For this one, I'm going to begin by kicking one leg straight back. I'm on my front knee, but then I'm just going to rotate my hip back and try to get my hip closer to the mat while keeping my back knee as straight as possible. Some people might have more mobility than I do in this one and will be able to get their hip down straight on the ground while keeping their shoulders square. Now I can open up like this and I can get my hip down, but I want you to just go as far as you can while keeping your hips square. They have those yoga blocks where you can prop up like a towel right here to sit on it if you'd like to really enhance this stretch. And I feel this one in my butt, the outside of my butt on my front leg, but I also feel it in the hip flexor of the back leg. That's the pigeon. Child's pose with elbows down is next. So we know the child's pose to be elbows extended, but on this one I'm going to actually have my elbows down and bent on the ground, and then I'll anchor the elbows and then I'll sit my hips back. And this is a really amazing stretch for the underside of your arm. This will really help the mobility of your shoulders. 15 seconds. Next, arms across deltoid stretch. So for this one, you can be in a kneeling position. You can lay flat on the ground also if you wanted to. It's just reaching the arm across your body, feeling the stretch in your deltoid muscle right here, your shoulder cap. 15 seconds each side. Good. Lying knee tuck. Lying on my back, tucking one knee in, and really tuck it as tight as you can to your chest. You can let your head relax, let the other leg extend out straight. Try to see that your lower leg and your upper leg are in line. 15 seconds each side. I'm feeling this one again in my whole hip girdle, both the front of my hip and behind my hip too. All right, we're coming to the end of day 3 or workout 3, and the last thing I want you to work on is a hand and forearm massage. We're going to spend about a minute per arm. I'm first going to take my palm and I'm going to squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. I'm going to pull on all the fingers lightly, trying to just get blood flow to the area and trying to stimulate or assist my lymphatic system, flushing out all the toxins, returning them back to your liver. And then I'm going to work my way up to my forearm. And this is going to be more of a muscular massage here at this point. I'm just going to squeeze the meaty part of my arm. And think of your arm as a cylinder, and I want to get all parts of the cylinder. The underside, the top side, and the middle. Working both hands And again, this massage, it's just really important. It's really overlooked. And if you can have somebody massage you, whether it's a significant other or if you go to the massage parlor, this is something that I can't speak highly enough about, and I think it's a really important complement to everything else that we're doing. Great, that concludes our session today. Thank you very much for participating. Make sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear your feedback.